Okay, so now let's talk about the envelopes. Now, envelopes are another thing I don't usually spend a whole lot of time talking about because I have said so many times, attack is how long it takes for the sound to go from its lowest point to its highest point. Decay is how long it takes for it to go from its highest point to silence or to the sustain level. Sustain level is the level at which it holds when you hold the key. And release is what happens to the sound after you let go of the key. I've said that a million times there. I said it again. I can't help myself. I have to say it. But these envelope generators have a few tricks up their sleeves. So we're going to talk about the envelope here. Okay. Throughout most of the demo thus far, I've just had this with the sustain all the way up. And we talked a little bit about how the envelopes control the amps in the amp section. But there are some features I want to show you. Okay, let's bring at least, we've talked about other oscillators. Let's bring another oscillator in and get some nice pretty sounds. Or at least something a little bit more. Okay, oh, and by the way, this is high note priority. There, I said it in the envelope video. Someone's going to be like, you never mentioned that it was high note priority. But you, the person who's actually listening to the envelope video, which I got to commend you for. Come on, who really cares about the envelopes? But really, there's some special things you should know about. But yeah, I said it was high note priority in the envelope video. That means that if you hold a note, the notes you play under that note will not play, but the notes above it will take priority. Which is not usually traditionally, like Moogs do not go that way. I'm not sure why the Japanese chose that option. To be honest, I'd rather be able to hold a bass note and add notes up high than hold a high note and then get higher notes. I guess you can do that. But I always want the bass note to take it away. I'm used to low priority, to be honest. Okay, anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the envelopes. So let's make an envelope here. Okay, so we have the sound. Let's make one with a big attack. And decay, that's very nice. You can see we have them pretty much here. Let's put them all the way up. That's nice enough. But, some of you in modern music might say, I would like my attacks and decays to be longer. So if you want that, we have a nice switch here that says normal time times 5. If you switch it to time times 5, I feel like stopping, but I'm impressed and surprised. It really is times 5. It's a lot longer. You have the ability to have a much longer envelope by switching the normal and times 5 switch. So that means that your releases can be longer. Or really long, probably. Let's see. Let's do a really quick one. Yeah, that's a heck of a release. That's great. These are super powerful envelopes because you have the ability, they have one set of settings and then a much, much longer set of settings if you're doing something that is long and drawn out and you want it to be. That gives you a huge amount of more power over some other synthesizers. My gosh, I don't know if you've ever used an R2600, but the ADSR on that has very short attack times, very short release times. It gives you nothing like what you just heard. And that is sad because this is really a great envelope. And of course, we have the ability to have this envelope set to something and then have, the other envelope controlling, let's say, the filter of VCO1. And they can be quite different. In fact, let's do the ×5 thing on the amp while the filter envelope generator does not have anything like that. So you can create these dual sounds. We keep talking about it, but yeah. So you have two envelopes that have two completely different settings. And in addition to having different settings, one of them is set to the ×5. So the settings are even more different than they would be if we didn't have the ×5 setting. And it just gives you a greater diversity of possibility in your two envelopes. And especially you'll see when we get into treating it as if it is two synthesizers, having completely different envelope outcomes of different lengths makes some really cool things. So that is awesome. Cool. Anyway, okay, another thing we have not talked about yet. We need to recognize that the lights come on when you play the keys. So you can see the triggering of the envelopes. And that's very nice. But that could possibly change. And here's the thing that we need to talk about right here, external keyboard. Okay, right now we have it set to keyboard, so the keyboard is actually triggering the envelopes. This is another thing that might make people think it was broken. Oh, that's still working. Oh, it's because it's only on one. Let's turn that off. Okay. It still works. Oh, I see why. Okay, so envelope generator. This is why this, okay. If we had all the amps set to envelope generator 1, oh my gosh, it doesn't work. I don't hear anything. And you can see the light is not lighting. And why? Because this is set to external. Now let's go over here to the external section. The external section is a section we haven't talked about yet. See, God, the synthesizer, there's just no end to it. It just goes on and on. Okay, what we have is when you put an audio input into the synthesizer, it has the ability to trigger an envelope. Now, it's one thing to connect another synthesizer to it that is hertz per volt and has gates and whatever, and then you play the other synthesizer, and then the hertz per volt controls the pitch of the oscillators here, and the gate controls the envelopes. That's fine. But if you just plug an audio input into this thing, it can trigger your envelopes, which is really, really convenient if you've ever done any simply processing with a synthesizer. You have to hold a note. It's an annoyance. Or you could turn the amp all the way open with this one. So you have actually two ways of doing it. But it's more fun if you want to design an envelope that your external sound will then trigger, in addition to all of the filter things that you've set up. So that's really cool. You can set the level to which the trigger happens. And then when you have this set to external, like so, and then external in the EG, the external sound will trigger this envelope generator. So it actually can play the synthesizer simply by virtue of being a sound coming into the synthesizer. And that is really cool. And that will trigger your envelope generator 1. And then if you're actually playing at the same time, you can be triggering envelope generator 2, which is super awesome, while your other thing takes place and triggers that envelope in whatever way it wants to. That makes for a really interesting interaction between just an audio sound being piped into the synthesizer. Another thing that we'll talk about out of place, completely out of place, is that you may have noticed that there's no noise generator, but actually there is a noise generator. It's right over an external. You switch it to noise, and then you have the volume here, which is your external volume or your noise volume. So if you want noise, you switch it to noise here, turn up the noise volume, and you have nice noise that you can direct in here. And when you want to finally get around to doing that great Halloween soundtrack, yeah, you're set. So there's a noise generator on here as well in one of the synth channels. You don't have a noise generator here, but you can make do. You don't need 2 noise generators, okay? You get 2 of everything. You need a second noise generator? Don't be so greedy. You've been given a lot. Okay, so of course, then the thing to point out is that we have the ability to get away from the wind sound and set weird envelope generator settings, like envelope generator 1 negative in the VCO1 path, and we'll make it positive in the VCO2 path. So we're only using one envelope generator to affect the filter and to affect 2 different filters actually. And it's affecting both of them in opposite ways. And due to their individual settings, you can get interesting outcomes. It's way more powerful. It's just more powerful to be able to use one envelope generator in 2 different ways on 2 different filters for 2 completely different outcomes. You just can't make a sound like that on very many non-modular synthesizers from the 70s or 80s. And there's even more to it that I haven't talked about yet. So you can, some of those sounds, those are really kind of modern sounds. Someone could have been making sounds like that in 1979, but no one really was. At least no one very mainstream. But yes, the envelope generators are very powerful. For just being envelope generators, you have a lot of functional possibilities, not only in what they can do on their own, but also how you can route them.